All right, we are live on the 12 Puzzles podcast of For the Secret, a Treasure Hunt by Byron Price. This is part 2 of November. We're going to be talking about New York, and we're going to get back to Montreal here. With me is Douglas. We're going to have some other people join in.
Nice.
And nobody wants to hear me in stereo.
Anybody watching? Maybe you can come on here.
Yeah, actually, I figured out a way I can link people directly, even if I don't send the initial email out to them. I'll go ahead and post this over to Facebook.
Yeah, you can ask your questions on the film on the video.
Yep. You're just joining in. We've got nobody watching right now.
Okay.
But if you join in, you back up. Got any comments, questions, anything you want us to talk about? Go ahead and do it. So we're going to go back to, since we didn't get to do one last month, we are going to Montreal. There we go.
Yep,
Montreal. And what clues?
Triggered on this one if you don't agree with certain stuff.
Yeah, Montreal's kind of tricky. But Montreal has a bunch of provinces, and I believe that's a step you got to figure out. There's a lot of people when you say Quebec City, they get Montreal's in Quebec province, yet there's a Quebec City.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, clues to the YMCA. The leg eater lamp is in Montreal.
Yes,
that's the first clue. And
mm-hmm.
if you got the book, you got to make this determination. If you've never been to Montreal, you wouldn't know anything about that leg eater lamp until you actually found it. I don't even know how you'd actually find it on Google or if it has like a historical book on Montreal. Does it have some kind of historical significance, or is it attached to something that would be in a history book? Or maybe Byron just put in there, that's a clue for locals. Maybe that's something locals would recognize, like the water tower in Chicago.
Absolutely. Because these things are kind of easier for people that are local to the area.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's little I mean, that anybody in your town, there's stuff that you're familiar with, you're looking at all the time. That was also the case in Chicago. Actually, that's what started them guys in Chicago on their hunt, was one of them recognizing the water tower downtown, and off they went. And I think that was on purpose put in there too, with a little, disguised a little by power car, but they still saw it.
Yeah.
And when you look at Chicago, there's a lot of imagery in there of Chicago. There's a few. He hides the names on the buildings and the streets, and he uses the first letter, like for Lincoln. Doesn't mention Grant Park at all.
Nope.
That's there's imagery. There's words of imagery that are associated with Grant and Lincoln and the Civil War and what have you. So he's not going to say. They might show a photo of it, like I think they do in New York, but that's a lot of the secret. That is a lot of the way this book works, is words that describe an individual or an event without actually having to say that event's name.
Yeah, there's no way that Byron was going to let anything that said Grant through, even if it did at first, the way that J.J. describes it.
Yep. And you got Scottish Irish, which is attached to that one. You had a lot of years where people actually thought that was Irish, but it is, because Irish is Scottish. If you're Scottish, you're Irish. You're Irish, you're Scottish. And the book says they traveled together. So that's two ferries in any city if you find one or the other. If you find the Irish ferry, like in Houston, because of their founding, then the Scottish ferry is also there. Those two
Well,
are all together.
He's got to combine these regions. You know, what I mean, he has to cover multiple regions with one. He's just not, you know, it's not so specific. But it's both. Irish and Scottish are related. I'm Irish. We're related to Scottish people.
In Houston, you know, that's why all the Persian, Middle Eastern imagery is used, because a lot of those areas are desert. Well, if you go out, your first clue in the United States to the Houston puzzle would be the Southwest. So that would basically narrow it down to 3 states: New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas, West Texas. And, you know, the arid, dry climate. Second for Houston is going to be your NASA reference, which is going to be Houston Space Center, Johnson Space Center. Mission Control, Houston, we have a problem. That's simple enough.
Exactly.
California with NASA, it's Santa Barbara, but there's more to that puzzle as well to get you to another particular city. But so back to Montreal, the first big clue. I really should start writing this stuff down. So where I found the first clue of going to Montreal was out of the team spirits and just researching the sports. So in Montreal, one with the team spirit, you got the Expos. Okay, the team there that's now the Washington Nationals. The Montreal Expos were the first team in Canada, professional baseball team. And the Expos, they were named the Expos because another Expos reference we have in the Montreal puzzle, which is the 67 Expo. So that's exactly how that clue is supposed to be deciphered. Yeah, Expo. And then if you want to take that further, you do Buckmeister Fuller, the architect. So the geodesic dome at the 67 Expo was his. He designed it. He built it. He's the one that created that. That also puts you right in Montreal, Canada. 2 simple clues. The YMCA, it's a British thing. You know, the Young Man's Christian Association, their first location was Montreal, plain and simple. And it's actually right across the street. One of their locations at the time, and it's not the first YMCA, but it was a YMCA location right across the street from the Leg Eater. So if you're there looking around and you already had, Pound Card kind of talked about that, you know, stuff you're seeing is stuff that is around you. So since the Leg Eater is outside, then that's probably something he saw too. But pre-planned a lot of this. I mean, basically, if you search like what happened first in a lot of these cities, you're going to get a lot of the historical information that is going to help you work backwards. Today another thing I was looking up was about these armchair hunts, and especially with Cat Williams' Masquerade. The Secret was actually listed as the first book that came out. It was basically a lot of what The Secret is somebody being inspired by somebody else. So The Secret was inspired by Byron because of Kit Williams' Masquerade book. And every single armchair hunt does have instructions. You've got to have instructions in it. Okay.
Yes.
I've elaborated on that before. He's not coming straight out and saying, you know, hey, you've got to use 2 fairies to complete any puzzle. But in so many words, that's what he's saying when he's saying that the fair folk do everything in 2s or pairs. 2s or pairs are basically, you know, you got 12 fairies, 13 fairies. I actually think there's a lot more since they don't list them. I think there's at least 14 fairies, but they're going to be in 2s no matter what they are. There's some of the fairies that you use in the puzzles don't carry a gem, is what I think, because there's a Chinese and a Japanese fairy. And on page 10, there's some there that he's actually not even listing. So,
yeah.
So there's, so you got 12 on that page. Have you done a lot of work on Montreal, Doug?
I have I have a spot in Montreal. Maybe not as deeply as some of the others. There's just so much I can keep in my head. So it was kind of like moving, four at a time. So maybe Montreal and Milwaukee, especially, doesn't get the attention. But yeah, I got a spot. I got a story behind it, historic story behind it. So
That's good.
I got
Everybody,
some I don't get the whole verse like I got the other ones. Like I said, it's not as good as the other ones, but I got something.
yeah. Plus, also what you got with the Y. So um the sophomore jinx, the U symbol, which is on there. They have a little lapel collar pin that actually has that U and that triangle, and also James Naismith and his contribution to sports. So the YMCA wanted to create some sports for their members, and the YMCA was basically it's a religious organization, but in Britain they wanted to keep all the young kids out of the bars and brothels. So um, it was a place where you can learn about Christianity, learn about God, but then they got to the point where they decided to design some sports to keep the kids there. If anybody, I used to hang out at the YMCA when I was a kid too. So
Yeah, there's a lot of them down in Florida.
yeah, yeah, they're like clubs now. They're like insanely expensive here, but they
Yeah,
wanted to
workout.
create. Yeah, oh yeah, they're like mega gyms, pools,
Yeah.
everything. One over here in Jacksonville a few years back, I looked it up and it was like I think it's like $180 a person a month, and like they had family plans, but yeah, I think the Y and M is money. You got to have some to be a member of the Y. But you could take the whole family there. There's stuff for kids and everything, so it makes sense if you want to do an outing with the whole family. But
Yeah.
the basketball, the volleyball, these sports were actually created by the YMCA and named Naismith, who was at McGill University. There's a lot of stuff in Montreal that connects directly to McGill. Including on what I posted the other day, the radon 222 was discovered in a lab at McGill University.
Nice.
And New York, for New York, I think it's about the Manhattan Project, and they had a lab there at McGill University as well. They had a secret laboratory. So, so you got the chest that connects New Orleans and Montreal, and then I have all that laboratory stuff that connects Montreal to New York, and roughly two dozen other places. Let's see, make sure this link is working.
Yeah. Yeah. 222. It does it. All those connections that I've found all connect to Canada. All of them.
Oh yeah, and that 222 is going to have a whole bunch of connections. Highway 222, Route 222.
Absolutely.
And I just said, man, there's so much stuff connected to McGill University. I wanted to rate on, this 222's got something to do with that. And it's the fourth element in what was, it's radon 222 is a byproduct of, I think, radon 226, which is basically something that happens after a atomic blast or anything like that, like Chernobyl, any kind of disaster or anything like that. But it I can't remember what it does. I think it holds longer before it dissipates. I think what was important about it. But once you get all that uranium development and stuff like that for power plants or naval vessels or bombs or stuff, this is all the stuff that they have to radioactivity, stuff like that. That's why New York story lists a lot about like Geiger counters and
yeah.
glitches is the first computer. But a lot of this stuff, but how the sports and basketball leads you to McGill, and the leg eater is in another part of the city. A lot of these things you're just like, they, of course, there's nothing going to be on McGill University, even though it's at the base of Mount Royal. And there's a lot of clues that are putting you right in that area alone. Uh-oh, somebody came in. We got someone smoking a stogie. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, what's up? We're live. Introduce yourself. We have somebody new on the podcast.
Yeah, I tried to come on last week, but I got stuck at work, so
That's all right.
I'm moseying up to my room so I can be a little quieter. Oh, how's it going? What are you guys into right now? What are you talking about?
We're just talking about. We're talking about the connections to Montreal. Yeah, we missed Montreal last month because everybody was busy doing other things. Life happens, so I've never felt there's not a whole bunch of stuff about Montreal. I mean, I can go over everything I got in one podcast. It's just a whole, and then it's just kind of like this jump. You're in the McGill, the Naismith, the basketball, the Expos baseball team, the Leg Eater Lamp, and then it just what I found in all my research is the center of Montreal is today, in the start of Montreal is all centered around, and of course the Whitestones that are at Mount Royal Park. That's Whitestone closest, and those are pretty much the Whitestones of Montreal. So I was like, this has got to be about something around there. So the verse is telling you want the first Whitestone that's south or whatever a standing member of a forest is supposed to represent, which I think is the cross. But once you use the cross and go to the first white stone, which is going to be the furthest northern stone, you got this whole measurement of paces, and you got to find west. You got to measure out the 12 paces. Then you got to figure out how many paces you actually need to take depending on your stride. And this gives you a big damn area line to cover out in the middle of an open park where today you can't dig. Even the guy I know that tried to lay down a blanket and dig next to his blanket. And then tried to stay there after dark and got caught just like that. It's Mount Royal is just like GG Golden Gate in San Francisco. There's cameras, monitors everywhere, motion detectors. Is like you're not sneaking around in there at night. I don't know what the crime is like in Montreal, but apparently they don't want anybody up there at night. And he said he got spotted pretty quickly, and he thought nobody saw him. And all of a sudden, the flashlight.
Milwaukee is just as bad.
There you go.
Yeah, well, it's like, here locally in Jacksonville, the mayor just did this parks initiative. Nobody's allowed in the parks after dark because we got such a big homeless drug problem around here. So today they announced it again. So the cops are going through there, and the first time, like a park down the street from my house, a lot of people go out there night fishing. I was like, nope, can't even go down there and do that anymore. It's gotten so bad around here that, the mayor is, they're tired of seeing this garbage in the park. So they want all this stuff out. And here it has nothing to do with, it's not the secret. Nobody's digging. It's just drugs and crime. And I don't know how many times I've called the police on them. They go down the park down the street from my house here, and it's like the Wild West. They're just out there shooting the stop signs. And of course, it's nobody to live.
Also, it's an easy ticket. The cops got a quota. It's an easy ticket to just see you in the park.
Yeah. They said warning first time, second time, you're getting a citation. But they said it's mostly to get the homeless out of there, but they're just basically, they're targeting any and everybody. And these parks have gates, but the city don't want to spend the money. The guy used to come and lock these gates at night, but he doesn't anymore. And I'm sure they probably don't want them locked so the police can drive in there and look around. But that's been a problem for a while. I mean, there's so many people that are just, down. It ain't just the dope heads. It's so many people are just down and out living in their car, and they got to have a place to park at night.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So not even using this place as an example of a secret city, but a lot of these cities, they're quite aware Golden Gate Park's like they're the only ones that were smart enough to actually make some money on it, except for you get to dig one time for $300. I'm like, yeah.
Did I just see that they pulled down the statue of Francis Scott Key at Golden Gate Park?
I think I heard of something like that.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I saw a video. They threw ropes over it and rocked it back and forth, and literally pulled it off its perch and rolled it down the hill.
Oh, you mean a not so legal removal?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely not.
What'd he do? They don't like.
I don't know. I mean, I think he wrote a song or something.
Yeah, what's the problem with that?
He wrote the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do it for any kind of agenda. He just so
Yeah.
getting
That's
rid
the
of our
whole-
history is stupid, people. I'm sorry, that's my opinion. I don't care if it's good or bad. Getting rid of history is dumb.
Protesters bring down statue of Francis Scott Key. Writer of the Star Spangled Banner and a slave owner was brought down by protesters during demonstrations against radical whatever. ABC News.
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that how convenient. There's no officials ever there to stop it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, this thing's up on top of a big monument too. It's way up there in the air.
That's ridiculous.
Yep.
You won't learn from history if if you're gonna repeat it if you take all the stuff down.
Now we've gotten into that discussion. Someone told me later. They said, "Man, your video's been getting taken down by YouTube. If people want to really get on some kind of format like this and really want to talk about slavery and who owned slaves, hey, I'll head that panel because that is one of the biggest misinformation campaigns this country's ever seen. There was tons of black free people, and most of the people in this country, even the white people, did not own slaves, but there was about 13, I think 7,800 to 13,000 black slave owners in America. There was 300. That show, I got that from that show, Finding Your Roots, where they bring those people on there. They do a DNA test. And that one, she was a black lady on the show, and they found out, they said, "You're related to this guy." And they showed him, and she goes, "Wow, wow." And he goes, "Yeah." And he's a slave owner in Louisiana. And she was like, "What?" And he said,
I think
"Yeah,
we were all slaves at one time.
sure.
I mean, the Irish
Exactly.
notoriously
another thing
sold
they
off.
talk about? They never talk about the Native Americans that were slaves at the same time.
Yeah.
They're never talked about ever.
Oh, yeah.
So
That was an old story. David Day said that was from 2020. He's right. Now maybe they put it up and they took it down again. Sure. The
Oh,
significant.
that wasn't recent then?
No, it said July 20th something, 2020.
Oh wow. Boy, I'm behind the
They probably-
times on that one. I thought that had just happened.
Unless they were talking, yeah, because even the article I'm seeing.
yeah, that's what I see. Maybe they did it again. Who knows?
Yeah.
I see that they tore down a Ulysses S. Grant statue too, and they're really misinformed on him. Then
Yeah. Yeah. Grant used to be a bigot. Yeah, there was a I never could find out what he actually ordered, but there was an order he gave one time, and they said when Lincoln found out about it, Lincoln he reversed the order and he chewed him out, and he said, don't do that again. Oh, hang on, we lost.
that was on the Jews.
Yeah, I hit the wrong button. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah, he kicked the Jews out of the territory because his father was involved in a scam with a couple of Jewish business owners.
Yeah.
So Grant made a rash decision and something that he said that was his biggest regret of his life, and he tried to make it up by appointing the most Jewish people in the history of the country. Still stands to this day.
Yep.
In fact, that was the reason why Jews moved to this country was his forgiveness campaign. So
That's
if they sort of Ulysses S. Grant statue, that's ridiculous.
They don't.
He was the abolitionist. So was his father. So
I mean, he was the commanding officer of the Union Army. I mean, give me a break.
yeah,
It don't matter. The agenda is just targeting anything and everything, but for all the wrong reasons.
he killed
I
the
remember
army against the Ku Klux Klan. He killed Ku Klux Klan, and they didn't show back up for until the 1920s and 30s again. It took a long time for them to recover. Grant's no bad guy.
no.
So
He was a good military tactician, and he was an alcoholic.
yeah,
That was his biggest fault. But in that situation, Lincoln got on his butt and told him you can't do that to people. And that also came up when Grant ran for the White House. That event itself came up, and he had to answer for that.
Well, his apology, it worked because he carried the Jewish vote both times.
Yeah, I mean, so some people out there believe people can change, but
That's right.
this misinformation. Like today, so Mark sent me this thing about the LA Times just fired everybody. The owner said, "I can't believe." He said he was totally surprised that Trump won, and he knew that. He said my newspaper is completely out of touch with the majority of voters in this country, so he canned everybody. And then said they're going to revamp. I was like, what? You tired of, come on. Your people and yourself are capable of figuring out what's actual news and what's propaganda. When propaganda today is a lot of the agenda movement. This all white people are slaves. I mean, you learn from The Secret that only 4% of African slaves actually came to America. Most people today, and I've researched this, most black people today, they can't even trace the roots to slavery. Most of them went to the Caribbean. The big vast majority of them are Jamaican, Puerto Rican, Haitian. That's where a majority of them went. Very few came here. But the amount of slaves and slave owners, especially, and it ain't no different than today. I mean, you can call slavery any damn job that anybody works at that's run by the master. Somebody that owns Walmart or Target or whatever, and they pay you basically a crap pay, which you always hear people refer to most jobs as a slave wage. So yeah, they're paying you just enough money so you can come back tomorrow. You're not getting rich working,
So
yeah. So
unless you're rich.
and one time free slaves started getting paid too. So it's. But the Underground Railroad, I read that article when we did, I think the podcast we did back in May, where this guy that was a historian, he said, what's sad is when I see the Underground Railroad research today, he goes, I see all the people that were involved in it that have been washed out of its history. Yeah. And he said there was tons of farms, there was tons of businesses where people were hiding. They were hiding slaves and taking huge risks, of their life and their family's way of life and stuff. And he said these people are slowly being, in these movements, these people were just, anybody that was basically white in that story is getting removed. And he said it's sad because this was part of it. They're just making it look like a few people did this on their own. And even the teaching that the slaves went from the north to the south, but the north was actually Canada. They weren't stopping in the Union North. They were just being taken and put right on plantations in the north. And then the political side of the Emancipation Proclamation and Lincoln actually freeing the slaves, you got people that were like, was that a political move? Because he wouldn't enforce it on the Union states, only on the southern states, because he was afraid that they would leave and go to the Confederacy too. But after the war, he implemented on everybody.
A political twist to it. Every move anybody in power makes has a political twist to it.
Yeah. So, of course, and, Lincoln, anybody in position would have taken that step as well, because the last thing he needed was, more states going, hey, I'm joining the South too. Bye.
I mean, a president has a cabinet. All these decisions are not by themselves.
Exactly. So, So when you read the real history, you get through a lot of this, and there's a lot of professors. I did. There was a guy years ago on some radio show, and he was spewing all this garbage about, and I was already aware of a lot of this then. So I said, dude, I can't believe you're a professor at university and this is what you're teaching your kids because this isn't true. So of course, when I start throwing stuff at him, they just hang up on me. I said, yeah, how convenient. I said that that's basically what you. Now we lost Alan.
Yeah.
Yeah, David.
It was terrible, but
yeah.
learn the real history behind things, people. At least, you know what I mean? It was bad. It's not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Byron being a history teacher and all that stuff, you're gonna have to really dive into this history. There's too many people thinking this is easy because Byron said it was easy. I'm like, no, he wasn't being. If you're familiar with the history, it wouldn't be so hard. But very few people are going to be like him. A lot of this stuff I think was probably common knowledge to him. If he's publishing books and stuff like that, and he used to be a teacher and things like that, he's going to be a lot more familiar with this stuff than any of us are going to be. So when you just have to take this stuff as what it is, you're going to have to do work. This is why it's been 43 years. I think Byron realized that he made it way too hard, maybe he had hopes that there was people out here that would take this all the way and be worthy.
Yep.
The book says you got to be playful. Playful is the constant roadblocks, and oh my God, now I got to go research this. Yeah, so you're gonna have to be playful with it, not get mad and put it down. But I don't think he was being honest at all when he said any of that, unless he, it's like when Luke Skywalker gets on Ben Kenobi's butt for going, you told me Darth Vader betrayed and murdered my father. He goes, well, in a way I did. It's like, well, when he turned to the dark side and became Darth Vader, he ceased to be your father, Anakin Skywalker. So you can see it's true from a certain point of view. Luke goes, from a certain point of view. Yeah, I didn't come straight out and say, hey, he's your daddy. Because he didn't want to tell him that. Because from the story, once Luke finds out, I can't kill my own father, and he goes, well, then the Emperor's already won. That's why they didn't want him to know that.
Well, and see also, okay, so you see those new ones, right? That's exactly how history gets changed. Because you'll look at the new ones and you'll see that they've changed things that you're like, hey, that wasn't like that from the other ones. You know what I mean? So history gets changed.
All right, so Michael Greer wants to know. So I guess Montreal. It's I never really tried to dig it in the book. I just want to get away from Montreal. So we're gonna go back to New York. And I mean, there's Montreal. I just, there's part of it. I was just kind of guessing, but I was just assuming that's going to be the, standing member of a forest, member's a cross member. There's so much architecture construction going on in Milwaukee or Montreal. That's why I came up with the cross, and plus the cross, what it has to do with the history. And the early settlement, there was going to be a flash flood. I don't remember the guy's name, but he prayed to the Virgin Mary to save the town from the flood, and he put a cross up on top of Mount Royal, and that's what he did, and it's still there today. So I don't know what the heck happened to Alan. But the question here is, Michael Greer says, what do you guys think hymn of hard words refers to? Douglas, go.
Ulysses S. Grant. So everybody's always looked for an author. Everybody says it's Mark Twain, and it can be Mark Twain. Mark Twain was best friends with Ulysses S. Grant. Mark Twain also published Ulysses S. Grant's biography, which he wrote while he had throat cancer. You can't get any harder words than that coming from I know because I've beaten cancer several times. So, but he had throat cancer. It was hard for him to speak. Those were hard words to get out. He actually had to complete that biography, otherwise his family would have been poor because somebody had scammed Ulysses S. Grant out of all his money. So the only reason he wrote the biography is because his family were going to be, they would have nowhere to go. They'd have no money at all. So you can't get any harder words than that, in my opinion. Hymn of Hard Word fits Ulysses S. Grant perfectly.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at the definition of hard words, tricky words, that could be one interpretation of hard words. Hard word could be like when you do a crossword and you go, that it says you drive it to work and you're thinking car, but it's actual automobile, but you're not familiar with the word automobile. So that would be, if you were young enough and you weren't familiar with the word automobile, you'd go, oh, car's 3 letters. This has got a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Hard word is also something that's referenced to something that's hard to read. That would be any book in any language you weren't familiar with, or a book like the Bible, because of the text. Yeah. So what I connected hard words to was a lot of the writings of Thomas Paine. Now, he has 16 pamphlets he wrote. He had direct connections with George Washington, the Revolutionary War. I saw a reference for somebody. I don't want to take that from someone. Someone called him the founding grandfather of America, because basically his writings were what spearheaded and sparked the Civil War. He's got a connection to the Spirit of '76, all that. What the Spirit of '76 means, like what JJP was referencing at the meetup, the Liberty Bell. What the Liberty Bell used to symbolize, that a lot of people don't realize what it symbolizes anymore. But when the Liberty Bell used to travel around, a lot of people came to see it because of the history behind it. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the Revolutionary War, the British, they had to hide the bell from the British because the British would have melted it down to make bullets, and how the cracks occurred. I think it was in it was in the Cleveland painting, because there's one Liberty Bell and there was 48 of them made that were replicas. One went to each state inside the continental United States. Some are at the Capitol, some have been lost. But the Liberty Bell is, I know a while back we were supposed to talk about this, and I don't think we ever got around with it. But I actually wrote all this stuff down in my book. Just reference. So all the places the Liberty Bell the real Liberty Bell had actually visited. And let's see. It was in Boston in 1895 and 1915 to promote Philadelphia. It was at the St. Louis Expo in 1904. It was in Boston in 1903, where it was escorted to the Bunker Hill Monument for a ceremony. That's not far from the Cap in Boston.
Yeah.
January 26, 1885, it was in New Orleans for the Industry and Cotton Expo. It was in Charleston in 1904 and 1902. July 17th, 1915, for the Panama Pacific Expo, it was in San Francisco. Now, after it left San Francisco, it stopped in Beaumont, Texas, and Houston, Texas, for a viewing. And it was also in Chicago for the 1893 Columbian Exposition. So in 1893, on its way to Chicago, the Liberty Bell stopped at, I think it's also like Milwaukee. It's called the Lakeshore Park. It's west of the Greek Gardens. It's not even 1,400 feet away. On April 27th, 1893, it stopped there on its way to Chicago, and from there, man, what was that? I know that was a connection too. There was a Chicago equestrian team. Okay, so Cleveland's Greek, and so is equestrianism. It's horsemanship.
Yeah.
So Cleveland, the Greek painting. So the Chicago equestrian horse team actually came there to Cleveland to escort the bell to Chicago. So there was a Greek connection with Chicago that popped up right there. Where else? Where else? And that was basically it. So you see how many cities that are commonly known cities to contain a cask in the secret. You know, we know it's Cleveland, but we know it's Chicago, but we have San Francisco, Charleston, New Orleans, Boston. The only thing I couldn't find that there was no visit to Roanoke Island, there was no visit to St. Augustine, and I don't think it ever visited New York. That was probably because of proximity. But when people ask why was the Liberty Bell, and that is the symbol of the Liberty Bell with the top hanger. If you see that, you go Liberty Bell. Okay. If you just see the bell, hey, that's Bell South, which is also part of the book for New York, or Bell Laboratories. So that simple clue in the Cleveland paintings, I think, is directly connected to all that history. Byron says, man, with the Liberty Bell, I can give all but like 3 of these the remaining 9 cities away. I mean, it doesn't mention New Orleans. I know it stopped in Roanoke, Virginia, and this is while it's on the train car. This is how it was moving about. Obviously, because it's out of the way, Roanoke Island, St. Augustine, probably too far south. But the Liberty Bell, is connected to Cleveland and all these other cities because of this event when the actual Liberty Bell actually traveled around the country to stop in places for people to see it. And I don't think the Liberty Bell has, I think since 1915? I think after it came back from San Francisco, I don't think it's went anywhere since unless it was restoration.
Yeah.
But a simple clue like that, just a little image of the Liberty Bell, leads to all that information. And you would literally go, man, you would obviously write down all these cities and go, hey, this is something to look into in the future. Has any of these paintings got anything to do? I mean, obviously, if you did enough research on Chicago, you would start seeing that imagery, right off the bat. So that's one little imagery clue of a painting leads to all that information. And it's not easy to find. You just like, hey, where'd the Liberty Bell travel to? Or you have to get a book on the Liberty Bell. And or how many books you got about the Liberty Bell? Well, here's one about the Liberty Bell, its history. Oh, here's one someone did about its traveling. I always wish I had like a library directory so I could actually look and see, like, what lists of books about the Liberty Bell are available. Like how many different topics the Liberty Bell. Someone did one about its travel, someone did one about its history, where it was founded. Whatever foundry is made of, you follow who ordered it, all this history that you can look up. That's a lot of stuff. And, it took up like this whole bottom of my page right here.
Yeah.
And probably about, 20 minutes. And then, all the other information is good. I mean, just look at the Greek verse and look at all the stuff in there that has, free speech, culprit, birch, newspaper references. You see the word columns, for the search, speech, Apelles, Socrates, Pindar. That's a philosopher, a painter, a poet. Of course, you got what you got at the, at the dig spot, telling you a little walking path. Or if you even look in there where it says beneath the 10th stone, people always said, oh, Byron had that wrong. And it says from right to left. Right to left was the early days of writing. Before we wrote from left to right, we used to write from right to left. And the early depictions of writing, that's what everybody did. They wrote backwards like the Arabs do today. So there's so much information that you can find by simply breaking down these poem words. Do not assume that they mean what you think they mean. Like when
How
they,
does Byron get it wrong?
huh?
Like how would Byron get it wrong if he's making this thing?
Exactly. He went every single way because I was going to try to compile a list today of all the techniques of a treasure hunt. And I looked at some that Masquerade did. Masquerade did the one like, how Celoy's in the margin of this St. Augustine verse.
Yep.
Kit Williams used that technique. He also used one where he did like a verse or a poem, but then certain words were all capitalized. So you're supposed to put all those letters together and form a word.
Okay.
And what it spelled out at the end was it was called Armt something. But it was the location where the treasure box was. But I had to back read about that because it was basically Kit Williams' girlfriend was dating a guy who was friends with another guy that was interested in a treasure hunt, and he told him to make a deal. And he went at the name, the Masquerade book got exposed when some newspaper did an article that the guy that won, I think his name was Ken Thomas, was a fraud. That wasn't even his real name. So he that's what led to everything, and then got back to the guy. And then when Kit Williams found out who his girlfriend was, he went, "Oh, like she knew the park." So, yeah, Michael Greer says, "Awesome that you've overcome cancer, Douglas. Congratulations." But yeah, in New York, I got to Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine wrote a lot of his pamphlets in the early days. He was a Brit. The text is hard to read. And it's hard words with 3 vols. He wrote 16 vols, but Common Sense was the one. I think that was released in Britain. That made him famous. But it was basically, the book was about telling people that you don't have to put up with the monarchy doing everything, government today, doing all this stuff to you, and the powers and the people. We know that was part of the Revolutionary War. But there's not a lot of history. Thomas Paine, he basically got blackballed during his time. We were just talking about, social justice. He was like the original social justice warrior. And basically what he did was he didn't care about wealth, money. He stuck up for the little people. And once he got in the high society here in America, basically they gave him the boot for continuing to do what he was doing. And I've said before on podcasts, he said, all I have is my religion and the good I do. He said, that's all I have. And he wasn't going to stand by and be friends with people that were just actively screwing people every single day. And for whatever reason, making themselves rich, keeping people down. That story's been told in the Harry Potter series, the magical blood versus the mud blood. It's that same. J.K. Rowling just twisted it into a Harry Potter connection, but basically it's that story of the world where one civilization's conquered another, made their people suffer, made their own people suffer, just so they can get richer. You see it in every movie depiction of any historical movie. The second everybody starts prospering and stuff, they get taxed, their stuff taken away. You can't come in these areas no more because they're property of the king, whatever, what have you. But basically, he got shunned by these people, and he died broke and alone in New York City. On top of that, but he's also from the British Isles. I made a post the other day about how the British Isles like encompasses everything: Ireland, Scotland, all that. Then you have Great Britain. Then you have another version. So there's been 3 names for Great Britain, British Isles, or whatever, depending on what land they controlled in and about the area. But Thomas Paine is the start. Thomas Paine was the inspiration at the start of basically what was the greatest achievement in mankind's history, and that was the development of the atomic bomb. And it took me over 4.5 years to figure all that out. Like majorly annoying, and very, very deep and detailed research. It's, bring this up again about the back of this book. Imagine you couldn't travel anywhere and you had to fill this out right here and send this to Byron if he was still alive today. And when he says, describe precisely the exact site of the treasure, describe precisely the cast found. So, of course, you do look under the lid and say it's got a time on it, so you know you got the right one. And he says, this is how I determine the location of the treasure using clues in the book. And it tells you right there, clues in the book. It doesn't say you need just a painting and verse. Everybody that is something else that I totally forgot that we were going to talk about tonight, is getting off these old ideas of the secret that have been going on for a long time, that you could solve these remainers with just a painting and puzzle. We don't really truly know what. I heard from Rob, it was wintertime, I think is what he said. So they couldn't dig. They couldn't dig in Grant Park. So was someone in the book during, they probably weren't, but maybe looking for clues to where it actually was? Possibly. Brian Zinn, I've never talked to him. He had the book for a long time. Did he actually use any stories of the book? But these are also, Pound Car said these were the 3 that were found easy. And every armchair hunt, like I think in Masquerade there was 15 paintings, but you're looking for one treasure. So I don't know if we of course we had the imagery in the 3 found. Of course, it got smaller in the Boston, and Palancar made comments about the print in the book. To me, that kind of suggests that he's like, there's something there I painted that you just can't see anymore.
Yeah.
But I wish he'd just say that. If anybody knows anybody that knows him, just ask him that. Is there stuff that you painted that you can't see because of the print of the book? Is this important stuff that we need to know? Because, dude, that could turn this whole thing. Like, if he said, yeah, man, there's like major stuff that after they printed the book and condensed it, and you can't see this anymore.
Yeah.
So there's so many variables,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like so. Yeah, maybe you could do it without the book, but like as the years go by, that's definitely gotten harder. I mean, like Chicago is like the perfect storm. They like knew different things. If you're not local, you're definitely not doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you can see Chicago has more. If you look at the Chicago painting, it has more visual clues than the other 2 found ones. Especially when you get to Boston with the witch stuff. I'm like, I don't know how you're supposed to know that's a witch. I really don't. She looks like a woman that you would have accused of being a witch. Maybe that was what they meant, but I've never been that much back history on Boston. There would have to be some Salem witch trials, something in the book, and it's going to be something. In the book, you'll look for that story by looking at anything to do with courts or I mean, that's how the book works. The automobile imagery, the wheel in Milwaukee connects to the American Motor Gremlins, which is the American Motor Car Company, and they're called the AMC Gremlins. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So if you see a cane in another story, and it doesn't matter if that thing does not say Milwaukee, look in there because every story usually has a few paragraphs, and each paragraph is going to be to a different puzzle. The spotter tips, you're going to have to get spotter tips from multiple stories and put them all together to have them make any sense. They're
Mhm.
they're just giving you little. He's giving you little breadcrumbs. You read the spotter's history and go, I don't know what the hell that means. Yeah, well, you need
Yeah.
another one. You need another one to add on to it. And once you get them all together, they don't make more sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, the book, Byron's trying to sell a book. The book's not easy. He's not going to tell everybody this book is insanely hard because a lot of people would not buy it.
No.
You know, IKEA doesn't lie to people when they say buy our furniture and put it together yourself. And these people drive themselves nuts for 4 hours trying to put this shit together and realize they're missing a bag of bolts. You know?
Yeah, they give you no screwdriver. You couldn't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. I know 2 people that bought crap from IKEA. They both told me this. My brother goes, dude, there's a whole bag missing out of here. And I said, what is it? He goes, it's like the parts to put this. It was like a bunk bed for kids. And he's like, dude, he goes, I've been digging through this crap. And he said, and I'm like, can't find this. And he's going through all the other packs. And he realizes, man, there's one bag missing when he gets the instructions out and says, you should have 4 bags. And he's only got 3. And I said, oh, there you go. Have fun.
That sucks.
Have fun. Don't put the kids on it.
Yeah, duct
But
tape
yeah,
for it.
we got a lot of new people on the page. And I always tell everybody, take your own path. Don't do what I did. Don't start reading what everybody else is doing, because that's where the first frustration for me came from, was going to the Fountain of Youth and going, there's absolutely nothing here that connects with anything.
Yeah.
This was before I even bought my first book. And I was
Mhm.
like, I got to go home, buy the book, and to understand this. And it's like, you can look at the paintings, you can tell which one. Okay, so the conquistador, the Spanish conquistador, one of the fairies is Spanish. There's your
Mhm.
painting. You got a French mask in the New Orleans painting. There's your French one. You got the New York girl face. You know, nothing really in
Mhm.
New York City, but hey, Statue of Liberty, New York. That's better guess anywhere. Asian. One of them's Asian. The page 10 doesn't list them, and it's on the West Coast. That's basically all the vanishing gives you. So that one's going to be out there, but there's none of them just screaming in your face. Oh, this is Houston, Texas. Oh, this one. It's
Yeah.
like, no. You got the imagery in the Chicago painting is telling you Chicago, Illinois, downtown. It's putting you right in a spot, not at the park, but that's where they started, and that's where when they stood around and looked at all the clues, they went, "Oh, this is that. Oh, this is on the building. Oh, let's go on down the street here," and boom, they get there.
Yeah.
I mean, that one's very easy to see. There's nothing easy about it. Now, if you weren't from Chicago and you didn't know what these guys knew,
Yeah. You know.
much harder for you.
Yes. Excellent. Yep.
But
Absolutely.
the book says the fairies do everything in twos or pairs, and he's telling you, I'm giving you one fairy. You need to find out the second and make that determination on whether you need 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or 12. Or a little combination of 13, the tree fairy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so on and so forth. People need to read through the front of the book. And there's word connectivity. You'll see words that will, there's a flatulence listed towards drinking and stuff that basically refers to farting, passing gas. And then you go in another story and you'll read the same word, even though one story it's in Latin and the other story it's in English. But I found out that both those stories connect directly to Chicago. He's just using one word across the pages to connect the two. The wheel in Milwaukee, the fairy's looking out of the car. He's one fairy's on the ground looking right at the tire, the wheel.
Mhm.
Milwaukee, mill wheel, yeah. Also wheel, bicycle wheel, motorcycle wheel, any kind of wheel. It's the history of the wheel, so to say. And Harley Davidson's there in Milwaukee. Nash, American Motor Company, Daimler, Chrysler. before they went off to Detroit, did their stuff there. This is where a lot of startups were, including one in Massachusetts near Boston. But it's people take that advice. A lot of people will put the book down. They will flat out put the book away and they won't want to touch it. But if you enjoy and you like being playful and constantly hitting roadblocks and steps, okay, I figured this out. I paired the painting. Now I got the verse. Now I figured out the state. Now I figured out the city. Now where? There's a reason why all this stuff is labeled and listed with the fairies on 221 and 222. The Damon Runyon, we were talking about that on the page today about people wanting to know. Somebody was just asking, what's the Damon Runyon about? It says French Riviera, area concentration, Nevada. If you go back in the early days of the actual casino, which had something to do with Napoleon, the French Riviera of Monaco was actually the first casino. It's still there today. I think it opened in like 1865 or something. But it's Monaco, but it's the French Riviera. It's close to the French city of Nice. So you come over here, so you're like, okay, casinos. So Nevada, Las Vegas, no. First casinos were on the riverboat of the Mississippi in New Orleans. That story right there is telling you New Orleans, Louisiana is where you need to be. As simple as that. Plus, you have the French in there. So once you figure out it's the French ferry, French Riviera, there you go. What is it? Is it helping you to get closer to the dig spot of the cast? No, it's just a clue to Louisiana. New Orleans is where you need to be in Louisiana. It's as simple as that. History of casinos. But also, when you look at that, and you know, the casinos and the riverboats attached to Mark Twain, and historically, the first people known to have gambled are the Chinese. So, we had the Warner von Brownie says Florida, Texas, California because of NASA, and we know the Chinese Prince Yi and all that stuff that's from China. Sports is from China. And guess what? They were the first to gamble too and play sports. And we know Mark Twain's history with the Chinese immigrants there, that he was asked at one time to be their representative of their community, and he refused. He felt like he was the wrong person to do that. So these intertwining string historical connections, you know, are going from Vegas to the French Riviera to New Orleans riverboat to Mark Twain, because of where he grew up, to his connection with the Chinese in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that's just
change the states all of a sudden. I think that's really not helpul. The ultimate state people. These people that want to like redo it and like throw away the states, let's reshuffle where these things are at state-wise. I think that's crazy. I mean, I can see why people want to do a city, but a state.
Yeah,
I think these are already done.
Yeah. I mean, and another reason why you have a lot of people do not use the ferries, and when you don't, you can attribute these vague clues to any city and pretty much anything in that city. Yeah. So you've got to be chasing the ferries. So America's a melting pot. We know that. Just the other day, I said, you know what? Every ferry is in every city just because of immigration. Even in 1982, when this book came out, you had every one of these ferries. Could you locate someone of German descent in any city in this country? Sure, you could. Byron Dennis used big areas of immigration from the start, like Houston with the Irish people, and it being founded by Stephen Austin, who was an Irishman. Sam Houston's Irishman. And the city was named after him, to the Germans of Milwaukee that came in a massive immigration later, you know, or the Irish in the potato famine, you know, immigrants. It was an event that caused them to immigrate. They didn't show up to these particular cities right when they were founded. They weren't part of the founding people. They immigrated in mass numbers later. I think the Germans to Milwaukee, I think, was in the 40s. I think in the 40s there was a big rush of them in the 60s. Just here recently, all the so Minneapolis, Minnesota, all the uh, Arab, Muslim, Christian, Catholic refugees of Syria and Iraq have all concentrated in that one area. This is going to be something in the immigration historical record books. Now, I'm sure when a lot of them got here, where are you sending me? Where everybody else went to Minnesota. Of course, they want to be around their people, speak their dialect from wherever they came from. And I'm sure in the city, the Syrians from, the immigration live over there. The Iraqis live over here. I'm sure it's probably just like that in whatever neighborhoods they're in over there. But not everybody immigrated. He didn't use the Dutch in New York. Which we know they were the first to make contact with the natives. He did use Mendez and Seloy at St. Augustine, but didn't do the Dutch contact on Manhattan in New York City.
I see some Dutch connections in Canada, but not in New York as much.
Yeah. So Montreal is going to be the Dutch connection, but a lot of that stuff back then, it had to do, like when it says Indies native. That Indies is a reference to, and I remember for years people were like, "Oh, that's Indies. That means Indian." No, it doesn't. Back then, and the Dutch, when the Dutch came to Manhattan, okay, they were the I can never remember, the West and the East Indies Trading Company. I think the Dutch were the East, and that was what their trading company was. It was the East Indies Trading Company. Britain was the West Indies. But when it says Indies native, that's what it means. It means a person of the Indies, which was, you have to figure out which one it was. Was he, we know the Dutch, let me look that up, because they had their own flags.
Yeah, I can connect both in New York, so both ways. I think that it has to have some kind of Native American reference. It's November. There's no way you don't think about Thanksgiving in November.
Yeah. I'm trying to see. The East Indies Trading Company included the East Indies and East Asia. Was founded in 1600 and dissolved in 1874. Okay, so the East India Trading Company was Britain. The West Indies Trading Company was the Dutch.
Yeah.
So that's why the Dutch came to trade for Manhattan Island, because this would be a new great trading post, and that's what their intentions were there.
Yeah. Yep.
But they both have history in New York City because they were competing for that.
That's true.
You come sailing down the Hudson, where the Statue of Liberty is, and you go, hey, go look at all this. This nice, safe shore. You get out of the ocean. Ships can get in here. By the hundreds. That's what they were probably looking at when they came in there to trade for that place. Of course, the Indians don't know they're giving away their land for beads and whatever the heck they got. But
hey, right there, that's a West Indies and Indian connection now. So it does connect.
Exactly. The Indians were, even if you go to Montreal about the fur trade, a lot of that was. That's a lot of that. The British were working with the local indigenous tribes. They were trading stuff. Hey, you bring us beaver pelts or whatever the heck it was. Of course, in history, until these people decided to, step on everybody's feet or start cutting them what they were giving them for what they were getting, and stuff like that. And tensions fly, and that always happens with greed. Or I know some of those old days of the trade, they've had to put the government's had to put restrictions on it because people were just killing way too much. And every time they go out, they're like, we're finding less and less of this, less and less of that, because when people realize they can come there for money and catch this stuff for money, way too many people always showed up. So he uses little terminology like that, like in the verse Indies. That if he wanted, if that was supposed to be Indian, then he would have just said Indian. I'm pretty sure. or native or whatever. He could have used many, but Indies is Indies, East and West India Trading Company. Yeah, but that
Yeah.
that was India was famous back then for the spice trade. And that was sugar, salt, all that kind of stuff, seasonings that we take that for granted today. But that's
Oh yeah, definitely.
that's a lot of stuff that you got involved. So we got 6 people watching. Any
Yeah,
questions
okay.
anybody might have, just post them in the comments.
Hey, you want to jump on? Well, come on.
Yeah, you want to jump on? Come on. I messaged Alan. I
Yeah.
don't know what happened to him. I don't know if his phone died or if he just said, forget this. I'm out of here.
Maybe he didn't like what we were talking about. Is what it is. History is the most important thing in this thing. I think Byron would agree that correct history is probably what you should know.
Yeah. Chuck Knapp didn't want to come on. He said, no thanks. I'm afraid I'll give out a clue to my solution. You keep your solutions. There's enough people in the secret world, they will steal your stuff and go dig up your stuff. And if they find it, if you're correct, they will give you no credit.
Well, also good luck changing people's minds from there. So I don't really think that if you gave out one clue that it would tip over the the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the only reason I've kept a lot of stuff myself is like, when I talked about the Do-Si-Do statue in Charleston, there's two holes there,
Yeah.
And I was there, I don't know. I went back 3 weeks later and there was 2 holes. And it's like, whoever did that, if you're watching, when the shovel starts crashed into something that close to a monument, that's called the footer. Since you dug out big chunks of concrete. But it's nice. It's nice. They've done put grass everywhere out there. There's no more dirt. There's no way you're digging, but it's not there anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
man, I want to talk about
so.
Dude, I want to talk about this stuff I got about Charleston so bad, and God, I just can't. Just can't. Oh man,
I don't even care because if I say it on here and it's found where I say it is, you know who said it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know. If you're gonna get it, go get it. Just put the dirt back in the hole, make it nice. Okay.
No, that's the problem. These places, I just don't want to get arrested. I'm going to get more hyper focused on St. Augustine. I got a good idea where I think Milwaukee is. That was the last one. I think it's somewhere something to do up there around the lighthouse. But I tell you what, when you go out there, these theories I've come up with, I've worked so long. I mean, we're about to go 2005, so I'm going to be like, that's going to put me like 7 years, 6 years in this book. I was researching. I started looking at all this stuff in like 2016. I don't remember what year I got the first book, but man, it's been my buddy Jason just goes, dude, you just need to find one. And I was like, dude, they're so hard. I mean, even if, say you came to look at Chicago, man. Look at how much trouble they had simply digging it up.
Yeah.
We're all still dealing with that. Things have changed. There's trees missing. There's stuff that was there when Byron was there. I mean, bushes have long died over 40 years.
Could be gone.
Oh, yeah, it could be gone. But trying to dig, and that's a whole nother technique in the book. In the book, I think it's a line. He's giving you a line or a time on the clock dial, but that it's not like it's right there. It could be in this whole area, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's just for longevity. It's like Byron. I can just see. I've imagined these conversations where JJP and Byron are standing there, and he's like, "How they supposed to know it's there, dude?" Like, oh, well, they'll find it eventually.
Yeah.
They'll dig this whole damn place up, but eventually they'll find it.
I mean, maybe he took it out because he was paranoid about the mark and the X. So maybe he thought the area would be better to keep it more ambiguous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who knows what he took out?
Well, for an example of that, since we're just going to get into all these, someone says, you think we might be looking at history too much and not using image and verse only? My opinion, no. People are not looking at history enough, and everything, even in the verses, is pretty vague. I mean, you got to have something to attach that to. And you
I
got
think
to
you
find
need to
that
be looking, I think you need to be looking at both just more as diligent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they go hand in hand, really.
Says the only
I
thing,
think at some
that
point
has
just
not changed is the image and verse. Well, the history that you need to be in is history based on what you find in the book. So, if you're in St. Augustine, you have to start, which we talked about last time. There is no Spanish fairy listed story. So right there, he gives you African in the garden goyle, which there's a clue in there. It's a dig spot clue, in my opinion. Then he gives you the Warner von Brownie, which he hides. The area of concentration is European and China, two different locations. European is not a country. That encompasses a bunch of countries. So right there in the book, Byron's hiding that country. You have to determine what that country is. We'll look at the imagery of the Warner von Brownie and do research on that and figure out where all that comes from. And you'll see that the guy in real life looks just like those John Pyrad depicted fairy characters in that image. And that tells you that European country is German. Then you got to figure out what city to apply it to.
Like your park's got to relate to some kind of history. You know what I mean? For sure.
Yeah.
You know, if your park doesn't match the history, then
Warner von Brownie worked at Cape Canaveral. I'm pretty sure he was probably in St. Augustine quite a few times in his life. I never even thought the Warner von Braun is his real name, but you could see how his name is it's spelled Werner von Brownie in the book, but his real name is spelled Werher or Wernher. The spelling's different. But the book tells you that you're looking for the descendants of the fairies. So if the Warner von Brownie is a German fairy, who is their descendant? And it's Warner von Braun, Braun.
Yeah.
And these are the rules that are in the book. They're in the front of the book, where it talks about the fairies and what they do. And people need to read through that. But there's a million history stories out there. You have to stay hyper focused on the stories that are in the book that are listed for the states and for the fairies. And German, there's a whole bunch of stories in there. But if you go through them, you'll start to see stuff about rockets and space travel. And there's your clues. You're like, okay, space shuttle. Oh, he's the father of rocketry. Got it. But everything else about him too that's why it connects to New York. His invention of the rocket, which was originally the V1, V2 rocket, which was a weapon to deliver a payload that just basically flew up and did a trajectory and landed where they needed to do, and it blew up, caused damage. Well, that initial research by him is what led to the rockets that took men into space, took men on the moon. Friendship 7, that's that first event. It was Warner von Braun involved with Friendship 7 when it says Friendship South in Houston? You damn right he was. Because he was one of the main guys behind making that happen. And later, his rockets for space were taken by the military, and they strapped nuclear weapons onto them. Hence the Cold War. The Atlas rockets had a dual purpose: space travel and armament. So when
Yeah.
you see between arms extended and people think, armament, firearms, or my arms, or, if your parents are your kid and your parents extend their arms to you, it could be, that giving somebody a hug. There's that's open to a bunch of interpretation, but you gotta get historical clues and then break that down to where these verse clues where you go, oh, I see what that means.
Yeah.
Otherwise everything's vague. I mean, this crap, base of tall trees, gaze north, you know,
Hmm.
it's vague. It's vague. But once you get there and you go, oh, this is about automobiles. I get that now. There we go. Oh, okay. There's the cars. There's that story. It's got a wheel in it too. You got to think three-dimensionally. That's a big thing about this book. A lot of people in history, there's very few people in history that have been able to, they say, oh, these people, and it doesn't have anything to do with being a genius. Albert Einstein was one of them. But you got to be able to, when someone says you need to think outside the box, or you need to be able to see the forest through the trees, that's exactly what
Hmm.
this is referencing. Don't get stuck. Like if Byron said, listen, you take that bicycle down the street. That's not what Byron does not mean get on a bicycle and ride it down the street and pedal in the secret book. That means bicycle has another meaning. You need to look at another meaning of street and any other little word he uses in there that isn't in and they, the
Hmm.
key words or main words. It's like in a Damon Runyon, he uses French and then Riviera. So the French Riviera is basically a different area of France, and you wouldn't really call it France.
Yeah.
It still exists today, but Monaco's in that. Monaco is not has their own king. They're their own. They're their own thing. And you got a lot of that in here where the Freudian Stiff says like Viennese, which is German Vienna. The stories that say ubiquitous, you got to get in those and just say, is there any? If you're working a particular puzzle, say you get one to ubiquitous, and some of them say area of origin ubiquitous, area of concentration same. You just need to scan through there and see if there's anything like any mentions of locations or people. Like Jefferson and Monticello is used for Milwaukee. It puts you in Wisconsin. There's a state clue right there, but it's not
Hmm.
putting you in Milwaukee. So when you do that research, where's Monticello? Where was Jefferson's Monticello? It's not putting you in Milwaukee. So once you go to there and you look around and you go, nothing else here. But I'm in Wisconsin. There's my state. Now you got to figure out the city. And the book does that. The Elf S. Presley is Elvis Presley. He's a Native American thing, but he's a clue. Oh, no, what is he? I need reading glasses. He's Italian in area of origin in Tennessee. Okay, so Tennessee, Memphis. That's where his home was. Why is Elvis Italian? Anybody should be able to pull up Google right now and say, what was Italian about Elvis S. Presley? And you'll see the history of the clothing he wore.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Some of Elvis's biggest inspirations as a singer, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was this Italian singer, and Elvis even ripped off the way this guy dressed. And just the other week, we were watching the news, they were showing this. It was a black guy. He was at some event with Elvis, and he was singing. This is the early days of Elvis before I think he became a superstar, or he was just making it on the scene. And this guy was dancing on stage and singing in a certain way, and Elvis ripped that off too. He said he remembers the first time he saw Elvis on TV, and he said, "Man, he got all that from me." And everybody was going, "No, he didn't. No, he didn't. That's Elvis." He goes, "No, no." He saw me at an event. I was doing that same move, and now he's doing it. But then try to figure out, okay, so, okay, so Italian, we know that's Boston, right? But what does Tennessee have to do with anything? Nothing. We know there's no cask in Tennessee. So what does Elvis has something to do with a puzzle? Okay? And I'm not going to say anything else because I'm going to get myself in trouble. Elvis has something to do with one puzzle, and that's what you got to figure out. But it's when you're working that one puzzle and you get into something, and that's where I went, well, what the hell does that got to do with Elvis Presley? And then I read into the history, and I went, oh, my God.
Yeah, that opera singer was Mario Lanza.
Charleston. What's Elvis Presley got to do with Charleston, Louisiana? He's got something to do with something. And there's a couple other places in the book that also suggest it, which I'm not even giving them away. Or you know what? I can give one away.
Do it.
I just can't never remember what page it's on. Elvis has something in common with Charleston, and is it here on this page? I'll go to the treasure that the fair folk bring. Yeah, page 21. Page 21, Elvis Presley and Charleston all have something in common. And if somebody figures it out, keep it to yourself. So you'll be able to see that Charleston's history and the history of Elvis Presley have something in common that is not well known in Charleston, but with Elvis Presley, it's not that known. You have to be a historian of Elvis, which this is something that I know Byron dug up. So prepared to dig, and you're not digging up a treasure box. You're digging up information. Someone says it's not where I think law is defended. It's where the image says it is, not history. You have to elaborate on that. I don't know what the image says. I don't know where the image is saying it is. In Charleston, if you work in Charleston, Charleston's about mothers and kids. Find that out from the book. Those have connections. Those are giving you ideas of what to look at when you're going to certain places. That's what I found. What is the clue between two arm in the Charleston image? That is what I think it's talking about, not what we think it is. It's what the image tells us. Oh, okay. So they're talking about the two arms extended. Wait a minute. Is that Eric? Eric, is that you? You're supposed to be on the podcast, not commenting. I'm recognizing this profile. Wait a minute. I am. Like, what the heck? Let me see if that's him. He's going to hang up real quick. He chat. No, that's not him. I don't know who that is. Way 1983. Oh, it's Alan. It's Alan.
Oh, where is he at?
I don't know. Where you at, Alan?
Come back to us, Alan.
I recognize. I can see a little bit of his profile pic, and I see the little kid. And I'm like, it's like, why does that look familiar? I'm looking at the page so much. Thanks for joining us, Alan. Man, you should have come on the podcast. Because we got Marcy didn't show up. I told Marcy I was going to rag on her. She's already got 15 kids and like 9 cats, and she was moving. No, I'm kidding. She doesn't have 5 cats.
Good. We need you back.
Oh, Alan says he doesn't know anything about New York. Yeah, we don't either. New York is. I every time I don't even want to talk New York. I hate November's coming because I think it's gone. And God, I was so excited one time that I had a guy out there who's going to dig it, and then I figured out that place had been renovated, and I was like, "Get the hell out of here!" And then when I did the research into that, I even called the place up there that did it. I said, "Man, how far did y'all dig?" And he goes, "Oh, we had to go all the way to the subway. They had to repair something." I was like, "Damn, what'd y'all do with the dirt?" He goes, "I don't know. They carted it off somewhere."
Hey, if
Ugh.
anybody wants to get it, mine is still there. So you want to go get it? Just give me the credit I deserve. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you go dig up somebody, if you go dig up somebody's stuff and you don't know the backstory, you're going to need that for Josh Gates. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so if you, yeah,
People will see right through.
yeah, I've told people I sent you find it, keep the box. I don't care. You just tell them how you got there.
Hey,
The
like that
story.
Boston one, we don't believe that. we don't believe the whole story. I'm sorry. Well, I don't. Something's missing there in Boston.
Yeah, we got people. Oh, here's a guy. There's a guy joining the page. He's right down the road from me.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I mean, it just a lot of people are not using the book, and that's no one's ever been a fan of anything I've said, period. There's a lot of people I talk to that aren't on the pages. But we discuss that enough that they see it. And basically, like I've said before, you use the book will tell you where to go dig and where it's at. This is not a guessing game. Byron did not put all this information in the book for people just to go. If you go out to a field and it says base of a tall tree, and you get to that field and you go, I know it's here because of this and this and this in the book. Okay. So base of the tall tree at that point is not helping you at all when you go, there's 86 trees here. What you need to do is you need to go home and get back in the book and you go, I got something to figure out with these trees because I can't dig around every single one of them. So is there a direction? Is there a line? This is where I played in years ago on the clock. I'm like, is this a situation where I just need to figure out where north is and make that 12 o'clock and just lay a clock over this whole area? And it says three, it worked in Chicago, worked in Boston. Do I think he used that for every single painting? No, I don't. And some of them he gives you a hard visual, like when Roanoke Island, it's Roanoke Island, 100%. And when you walk that path to the Elizabethan Garden to the beach, it says gaze north at the wing. So from you, the wing is north of you. It's north of you at 1 o'clock, which is the time. So if you're standing on the beach and you go, okay, there's the wing at the Wright Brothers Memorial over there, and you get your compass out, that's 12, that's 1 o'clock, that's north, and it shoots a laser beam right to it. And basically what you do is you look in front of you on that line, you got a buddy say, hey, stand right there. Stand right there and put a stick in the ground. That line on the beach is where the cask is going to be. But since erosion has occurred there and the gates have fell, and old photos you could see you used to go through the gates and kind of turn to the right. That point where you actually step on the beach is not known anymore. So it's to the right of the gate. There's just a million lines there. You have no idea. New York would have been. See, he uses different. In my theory, Byron uses different kind of imagery. Okay, so my place was the wedding garden at Foley Square. It's been gone for 24 years now. But you'd stand and look at it, and there's a place for the bride and groom, and the preacher stands behind them. But then there's a little garden that like U-shaped, and the very back would be 12. Right off to 11 o'clock would be where the cast would be. That's what I would use. Because if you use north there, the cast would be out on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Or concrete or whatever. So you use it as a visual, like if you were staring at the fence in Chicago, or the Greek Garden wall that the verse told you to go behind before you start hopping up, and you're 6 o'clock at that point. With the clock,
Yep.
the center of whatever you're looking at is the actual center of the clock. But you're 6 o'clock, no matter where you're at, because it's your point of view. So if you're standing there in Chicago looking at the fence, you're 6, 5 o'clock was right next to you. And I remember I made a little illustration of that, and I sent it to Rob, and I said, "Is this about where it was found, like to your right, if you were standing?" He goes, "That's exactly where it was." So when you go to Cleveland and you go behind it, because it's a lower terrace, behind the Greek Garden wall, it's because there's stairs. The other side, you're much higher. But when you're looking at the wall, you're 6. It was on the right side at the end, which is 3 o'clock. The other side would have been 9, and right across the wall would have been 12. So the planters run on the 3 o'clock line. On the left side, they run on the 9 o'clock line. But that's only when you're behind it. If you're on the other side, the right side would have been 3 o'clock. Then Boston, you lay the clock right over home plate. The third baseline was north. 8 o'clock is a line at the back of home plate going between the catcher and umpire's feet. How far back it went, I'm still trying to locate that guy. I'm going to bring that guy on the podcast. I'm going to bring the guy that was actually digging about getting tracked down. I'm going to say, where were you digging when you first, because he says he dumped and he saw a piece of plexiglass. So that scoop he had the cask in that scoop.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say, do you remember where you were actually? And I guarantee he's going to say either right at home plate or just behind it. Because I think that's the only place Byron could have buried it where nobody would have noticed.
I don't even know if he knows exactly. I don't know how much of that story is manufactured. I believe it was there, but hopefully we get the guy on that we were talking to before for Boston, and we can talk about Boston.
You insinuating? Think they made it? I've heard that rumor. We can talk about that.
Yeah, I'm insinuating that that guy that got attributed to it.
I
don't believe his story. I don't believe his solve. I don't know how much was given to him from Josh. I believe it was there where they found it, or I don't even know where they found it. Through my process, it was the softball field to the left that it was in. So I believe it was that park. I don't know exactly where they found it. Is where they found it. Sorry.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. I've heard that too. I've heard that at Gates and them were at the wrong field.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Back the steps face the water. It's actually the field that's right in front of you. Field at home, you could see home plate from where you were standing. If there were no cars in the way.
Also, I feel like that side of the field wasn't even dug up. The timeline doesn't fit. That they were actually digging up that field to the left when they found it. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't
know. I found Google, so
those people were outside the fence. I mean, somebody was there to see that. But there's more than 2. There was 2, right? There was 2 fields out there, right?
Yeah, there's actually 3 baseball fields right there. So, like one's a softball, then the other 2 were baseball fields. So there's actually 3 home bases in that park.
Yeah,
so.
and I think the verse I think mentions middle section too.
Yeah. So
I mean that's a good explanation of people don't want to know how the verse works, but you can see how it's a lot easier. So that was
in the steps, the steps are closer to that softball one to the left. The steps aren't near, they're not across from those steps, the ones that they found it at. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
all
think.
the letters are here to see. I never figured out what that meant. Green Tower
So,
lights in the middle section. Yeah, you can also see the verse is kind of mixed up there too.
yeah. So, and also the ice skating rink is definitely a clue in there too. So, like the farther you get away from that, it doesn't make sense to me. So,
Yeah, I mean every time I look at them, I just think the same thing. I was like, dude, these things are just made for longevity. There's no like, like if you said someone, hey, dude, if someone figures out the historical connections and blah blah blah, that's going to take them right to the spot and they're going to be able to dig it up. That's not the case.
no, that's not the case.
It's going to take you to an area and have fun
Yeah,
digging.
yeah.
But I mean, that's the problem now is people are digging holes everywhere, and the cops are all over that
That's
because
right.
nobody can just get in. And some of the stuff I hear about some of these places, and I'm like, do not go in there.
Yeah,
These
it's
places,
not.
you're going to get arrested. You're this. Another thing, the book says no flower beds, but you have to figure
Yeah.
out that a Saharan garden is not a flower bed. A flower bed is different. They're both something you would plant a flower in, but that's
Mhm.
the stuff. That's the way this book works. He says no private property of anybody involved in the book. He's telling you no private property. Anybody involved with the book or anybody not involved with the book, you're not digging on because they would have come right after Byron and sued the heck out of him.
Absolutely.
There's a legal precedence in this book. His lawyer said, dude, you can't bury this stuff on people's private property where the people are going to be jumping the fence, causing damage,
Yeah.
breaking sprinklers. They're going to come after you.
That's why it's not buried as a castillo, people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do not go there and dig.
It's common sense. But he says like no dangerous areas, no active railroad tracks. He says he's telling you at Herman Park in Houston with that. I don't see any other train references even in the book. I've never even come across one. So when he says no active railroad tracks, he's telling you when you get to Herman Park, don't dig on the railroad tracks because
Yeah.
that will get you in trouble too.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
did
yeah.
put it in the zoo with the rhinos.
Mhm.
Don't jump the wall and try to dig around where the rhinos hang out or the camels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, common sense will tell you don't jump into the zoo. If Byron was some kind of serial killer, you're like, yeah, it's in the verse will just tell you it's in the back of the lion's den. Go get it.
Hey, I tell you, no Patriots Point. I'm sorry, Mark. I know you might
Yeah.
be listening, but no Patriots Point.
Yeah, and they basically say, don't take a shovel because I didn't bury it. Take you a baseball bat. You're gonna need it to beat up the lions. Byron was a Boy Scout. He didn't drink, smoke. You see them stories in the book.
Yeah.
The filthy hobbit is the filthy habit, and the leprechaun man is about the drunks. He
Hey,
was a good Jewish boy scout. He's not doing any of that stuff. So Ben
I'm
Asen
surprised
said
he took
he hated it. He hated smoking and drinking,
Yeah.
but he was a very religious man too. So that's what you're on.
A lot of Jewish people are very religious. That's why I say there's got to be some Jewish, in my opinion, that there's some Jewish connections in there as well. Every single city I found, we think that there's a cast had the most Jewish population in that state at one time.
Okay, I see. He says because Boston is spelled out, and you see the zip code, and at the site you see the letters from the image on the flags. It's in plain sight. Jewel in Boston painting holds clues to where the cast was found. All the solved ones did.
Well, hopefully in the future we have a real.
Nobody noticed. Town car's like, look right here, Boston, and everybody's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, we all saw that, just like we saw the witch. Pound car, he's too good at hiding stuff.
Well, he's a surrealist painter, so that's their gig pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean, some of some of that stuff is, I don't know. He did speak about they got in like a hurry and yeah, maybe it's that there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I wish John Colby would just give him permission and go, hey man, just tell everybody something, something,
I kind of feel like we should approach it and hey, we could probably be proactive and make some more money off this thing. I don't know why he's so non-proactive in pushing the secret, which he owns. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I got some stuff I'm gonna be sending him soon. I got an idea. One of the ideas I had was him making a real book. I mean,
Yeah.
wouldn't everybody like a bigger book
Yeah.
with hardcover, with elaborate and better print,
Yeah.
and
Make it limited edition. Make people pay through the nose for it. You know what I mean?
I mean, the original sold 10,000 copies, and I think, you got at least 100,000 fans. I mean, if you sold 100,000 copies, would that be worth it? And the book's already done for you.
He's not happy working with the old guard. We'll work with you. You know, he's not the only one in town. So,
I mean, if you did like I'm trying to think of what is, instead of doing just a plain old paperback, I mean, do an elaborate leather bounds with designs and better print and throw it back out there. And I mean, this was the way social media is today, dude. And John Colby could have went off like the episodes that Josh Gates did. Like, dude, why didn't you just throw? They wouldn't even have done a show about this if there wasn't an audience. People like that ghost hunter crap, treasure hunter crap. It's great all over TV. And Colby imagine if he re-released the book and say, yeah, you get the gem from the family and I'm going to give you $10,000. Like, dude, you could take this and just say, run with it. It's like, you don't have to
base it on how JJP was talking about that leather bound book that Byron had. Give people one of those leather books with the good pictures in it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. Call us up, Colby. We'll make you some money.
To see how the verse can be talking about the image. Boston's jewel is turned to look like a green diamond, and it's shown in the hair, and her hair is the outline of the baseball field. Top of her head is where home would be if it's lit by lamplight. Interesting.
Yeah, it is like a triangle.
Oh, I got that. I can't see that well. Yeah, this might have been also what Power Car was talking about.
Yeah, I got thinking that exactly behind home base though, because is he really going to bury it on an active baseball field? People wouldn't notice that. Like maybe behind the the cage behind them, the backstop, but I don't know if he would.
There's a pretty thick layer of the clay, and then you got dirt. So he would have just had to. But where the umpire and the catcher are standing, they tear that up. All they do is rake that over every day. So if he dug a hole there, no one would even notice. And there's always every baseball park. If you look in the back, there's always like a mound of clay. They got like a dump truck load back there in case they got to fix something. He probably went back there and took.
It's not like right behind the base.
No. Somebody used to push to it was out in front of home plate between there and the pitcher, and I'm like, no, because the umpires would have automatically noticed that. And if that field is jacked up in any way, they would have said, what is buried? Because the part of the reason they use that clay is to keep that a clean surface. Have you ever been on a baseball field and it rains? If there's a piece of wire there, it'll be sitting on top of that clay.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. It's because the field's got to be safe. So that if they suddenly go, hey man, somebody dug a hole right here, The
Yeah.
umpire is going to go, "What the hell? Dig that up. See what the heck that is."
Well, and also
Stupid.
the lawyer is gonna, he doesn't want, if somebody gets hurt on his divot, you could get sued.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean
Yeah.
that line would have ran all the way to the backstop, the fence. I mean, he could have went all the way back to the fence.
That's right.
And I know, obviously, that's something he did at night, but they would have had a clear view of anybody coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He could have went anywhere. I was just thinking that area because, it's like the batter boxes. All they do is rake that smooth, but every game it gets tore up. But if you go a couple feet outside there, it's nice and smooth. Out going to the pitcher and everything else. So on a field like that, he would have to, I got to either pick the disturbed spot to bury this, or I got to get to the back fence where, somebody was standing there, or it's not kept because it's actually off the playing surface.
Yeah, I mean,
but the times line up for all three of them.
Yeah, I've heard people it's 5 steps away from the pitcher's mound, and I don't think so. You know what I mean?
No, he wouldn't, because I mean that would make the field attendants. If I was one of them, I'd go, somebody dug a hole here. Let's see what the heck they buried, and they would immediately dig the box up and go, "What the hell is this? Why is this being buried here?" So he would, he's got to hide. He's wearing the vest, and I'm a construction worker. Some of these places he went into, and maybe it was just in case someone showed up, but if somebody there goes, I don't even buy the construction worker vest, because if a official of that place was there, it'd be like, "Who the hell's that? We hire somebody new?" Yeah, that's what I'd be thinking. No, who's that? I don't know. Why is he wearing a vest? And we don't know who that guy is. It's hard as hell to get in and out of some of these people. These places, man, there's people coming in there. You got crews that take out the trash. But God, so many of these places are just, New Orleans, they're looking for people digging all over the place. St. Augustine, Roanoke, and God almighty, stay off the baseball fields in Roanoke. There's nothing on the baseball fields. Baseball is not even a part of the Boston puzzle. He just used home plate in a field.
Yeah.
Other than that, the topic of baseball or softball is not used. But Golden Gate Park.
There's a lot of people. There's some people that think there's baseball fields all over the place that have them. I don't think so. I think that he's going to use that once.
He wouldn't go through all he wouldn't go through all this trouble, stories, and hiring all these writers and photographers and sculptors and stuff just to put 2 different boxes on 2 different baseball fields. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
And you would see, if you think it's a baseball field, say it's, the Roanoke Island one or St. Augustine one. Look in the paint. You're gonna find some baseball imagery. You already know that from Boston. He would have to do the same thing. How would you know that it's not a baseball field if he didn't use any imagery of it? It's just, I don't know why people are doing that. And there's a guy up there. He's in charge of the parks in Roanoke. And he told me that home plate got completely dug up by somebody.
Oh, God.
And wanted me to reference why people were there. And I was like, here, come to YouTube. Let me show you this guy's videos. He's on one of your baseball fields.
Well, I seen there's a guy running around New York digging up baseball fields, and it's not. You're wrong. I'm sorry.
No.
Stop it. And the reason why I found out is because in the Boston verse, they say that Xenophon's above 2 cities. So they're like, oh, New York is Xenophon, so it must be a baseball field. That makes no sense. Stop it.
Yeah.
You don't get clues from another.
Find your spot. You got to be in the book. It's as simple as that.
Boston's not telling you where to find it in New York. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It was we plan on doing this podcast like this. We need to start talking about the book, and we need to start turning. It's been almost almost 43 years for a reason, because this nonsense, whatever we want to call it, has been going on in the secret long enough. It's not at the Fountain of Youth. It's not at any of these other spots that for, I don't even know how long it's been now. We probably can call it a decade.
Yeah.
John Fraser knows it's not there. They've GPR'd that entire place pretty much because
Stop
they
giving
were.
them your
And if you email John Fraser about going there and looking, he won't respond anymore because he's not letting anybody out there because he's already told everybody it's not there. I think he was trying to capitalize on it. So
yeah,
you know,
for a while.
thank you for him for basically knocking that spot out because people
Yeah.
convinced him it was there too.
Well, I mean, like, you know, people started to pay to dig the same spots, and you know, I
Yeah.
heard he's a nice guy, so he's not going to take your money like that.
Well, and he used Seloy, Timaquanan, and part of what's on the site out front of the entrance. That's all he used.
Mm-hmm.
And the history is more important because Seloy and the Timaquanan Indians with Mendez and the founding of St. Augustine, they were all there. But it's just a start. So you could say he used the sign out front because you'd be able to see that with actually, say you showed up there when they weren't open. You can actually see that without going in. Seloy and the rest of that, you learn from the history.
Yep.
And that,
no, my St. Augustine, you can.
What now?
If somebody wants to dig my St. Augustine, come to me and I'll see if I'll vet you out and see if you're honest. But you know, you could do that. I'm fine with it. I'm not hiding things anymore.
Dude, tell me where to go. I'm the one that goes down there.
Hey, we could talk off air. I'll send you right to it.
No, stand by. Douglas is going to tell everybody. I bet I go down there tomorrow. The news is there. They're like, we don't know what the hell.
I think it is. Want to try it? Just give me the credit. We should all be supporting each other anyway.
So police caught 50 people out here at 1 o'clock in the morning with shovels, tearing the place up. Sprinklers are broken. More at 11. Oh, I've heard some funny stories. I had the cops of St. Augustine Beach Police call me about 3 guys down there at the plaza that took off running and left all their shit behind. Their wheelbarrow, their shovels. I was like, I've been home all night, man. Well, where do you live? Can you go? I said, no, dude, I'm in Jacksonville. I'm not even in St. Augustine. But the dude came to change.
I'm sorry.
The guy came to replace the garbage, and these 3 guys, hey, what are y'all doing? They just took off and dropped everything.
Let me grab it 1 second. You gotta get augers, guys.
They got one guy's fanny pack, no ID or nothing, but got 2 shovels and a 5-gallon Home Depot bucket and a wheelbarrow. I was like, who was actually coming down there? And they didn't even get started from what the guy told me. Got confronted like immediately.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, you put
Dude
this
there trying to take out the garbage. He's like, hey, man, what are y'all doing? And they just took off running. But they ran out
on the screwdriver.
Huh?
You put this on the end of your screwdriver. It gets down to the cask in less than a minute.
Yeah, that's a big one. And that thing
right on the
gas box up too.
Yep.
Man, you bring it out.
Less than $100 for that thing.
That thing looks like a missile too.
Yeah.
I know. I got one of those I made out of PVC with 2 handles where I could take a core sample and go down a couple feet and pull the dirt out and read, even do a bore scope or just physically look down there. But I'm scared to even put a probe down in the ground because David Day says, I'll scan it for you. But yeah, because a lot of few people I know, I don't want to mention, they know who they are, but they've done tests and like went right through a replica box they made with a plexiglass. So it's like, yeah, but a little like digging.
So
the what?
The cask is probably in pieces anyway, from what we've seen. Oh, the other ones?
Yeah, it's a possibility if he put them too close to trees or something over time, root expansion. Something might have got up there, especially if it's
Near
holding
the
water.
water.
The roots want to be all inside that box.
Yeah. A lot of them are near the water, so flooding.
Yeah.
Charleston is notorious for flooding. Somebody flushes the toilet, it floods downtown. So,
I saw something today about I take these little shots for the news sometimes when there's bad car wrecks and stuff, and they sent me a notification here, flooding in Charleston. I was like, dude, I ain't nowhere around. It's some New York news agency. Are you
yeah.
available to go film some flooding in Charleston? I was like, dude, I'm not even in South Carolina, dude. Why are you sending me that crap?
You wouldn't even be able to get downtown.
Yeah. I mean, Charleston is flooded so bad, like on a regular rainstorm, that I didn't even have to go to work. Yeah, I worked right across the street from
Oh yeah,
White Point Garden.
me and my wife were down there. We had trouble getting back to the. We had to go up to West Ashley to get back to our hotel, and the
There
fire,
you
fire and police were already blocking roads. I told my wife, "Dude,
Yep.
people slow down this one road," and I was like, I went around and plowed through the water.
go.
My wife, what are you doing? I said, we don't get to the hotel. We're gonna be sleeping in the damn van. I said,
Yeah.
this ain't gonna stop. I said they were talking on the radio. They were talking about the tide was coming in. These
Mm.
people are just. But we came down this one road the way we normally were going, like down across the bridge where the Holiday Inn is and stuff. Before, I think it's that road called. Like you got the two bridges that come from West Ashley over into Charleston.
Highway.
The Holiday Inn's in the middle of the two bridges.
Yeah, Savannah Highway.
Yeah, before we got to there was where we went down one road, and my wife's like, "What is that?" And I said, "The fire truck." The whole intersection was flooded up both streets. I said, "He's blocking
Yeah.
the road." And there was a car stuck out there, so I said, "Oh, let's go down here." And
Yeah.
the storm drains there. The water literally comes down the storm drains and then pops up, in the city wherever it's at. I
Yeah.
can't remember what happened that way. I remember that next morning at the hotel, the worker guy goes, "Yeah, I'm sorry." He goes, "All our employees aren't even here because they couldn't get here this morning." And that's when me and my wife, we just decided to leave because I said, "Oh, what's it?" He goes, "Dude, it's really flooded downtown." And I said, "Okay." So nobody can get over where that hotel was because of the flooding. And I was like, we're not going to be able to get downtown again. So we're just walking around taking pictures. So I just said, screw it, get out of there.
Yeah.
Come back another time, but I have no plans on going back to Charleston. I think I know where it's at, but it ain't going nowhere. And you really can't get in there to get anything anyway. So, and Charleston, you told me about Charleston. They're really, they want that box. So
they want it. Like if you find it, even if they're not going to give you permission, they're going to want it. You come on here and tell us where they found it. You might get a phone call. They might come after you. They want that box. It's theirs.
And I'll tell you to push the alternate city of Savannah, Georgia. Anybody you find a Charleston box, it was in Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Because lions come from Savannah.
Oh, it's here, you liar! Didn't find that crap in Savannah. You found that in our city. We'll use the park. We'll use the park in Charleston, but use a different city. Yeah, we found it in White Point Garden in Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah, because you could be like, oh yeah, lion in Savannah. Maybe that's what you're supposed to do. You're lying. You know what I mean?
White Point is that secret garden in Savannah that nobody knows about. They're like, you liar! You were digging in our city. Oh, you know why they want it? They know. See, people in Charleston are smart.
Yeah.
I've told that to the people, city of St. Augustine, and they're like, we don't care. Charleston knows that will bring a whole bunch of people to Charleston to look at it in their museum that you got to pay to get in that place too.
That's right. Charleston, everything is history to them. Everything. They bank their whole tourist industry on history. So
sure. And Byron used the history of Charleston, as part of his treasure hunt book for a reason.
That's right.
Simple clue verse of Charleston, men of tale of tunes and tunes. So if you go to all the tales told and all the music written about cities, you will find that more artists that wrote these songs used Charleston more than any other city. That's what that means. Tales and tunes, Charleston surrounds more of them than any other city. And like Billy Joe's wrote, he's wrote songs about New York. A lot of people have written songs about particular cities. Just in recent history here, New York was the topic of a song. I don't remember who sang it, but
a lot of rap songs with that city.
Yeah, Charleston's got a long history. Music's a big part of Charleston. Jazz, the orphanage that led to the Charleston dance. All that stuff is part. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Does a particular lead? A lot of that stuff, the candy bar, the dance, the jazz. No, it's just it points you to Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see that a lot in there is, I wish I could remember what that was. The Boogie Woogie Man, which is ubiquitous, or the Boogeyman, African ubiquitous. It's basically following black jazz. That story puts you in San Francisco. It puts you in New York. It puts you in Boston. It puts you in New Orleans. It puts you in these cities that all had jazz clubs. But that one clue you could follow when it comes to jazz, you got I wonder if you just call it the big four: New York, Chicago, Charleston, New Orleans. That's basically, if you just want to put jazz in a nutshell, where it started and where it was going and where it was to be. And this is a different time of history too. This is the 20s and 30s. This is your big bands. And Sosa, all these people are mentioned in the secret book. So you got to pay attention to a lot of that.
It seems like Byron liked jazz from what I've seen.
I love jazz myself.
Yeah.
But see,
not like heavy metal.
Yeah, when you come to the Boogeyman story, so you start seeing like Uptown, way across the tracks, singing, dancing. These are all the key words: moonlight, Dixie Island, funk, dance, colored, shimmy, swinging, Lindy Hop. Lindy Hop was also created in Charleston.
Yeah.
And it was created at the same time the Charleston dance was created. Put you in the jitterbugs. That's another dance in that area. Uptight with rock and roll bop. Ooh, I shouldn't even be reading all this. Rock and roll bop. That also puts you in Charleston. He moves so cool. His thread's so fine. Shouldn't even have read that. And for F. Michael Lewis, we were a while back. We're talking about Ali. He made you want to blow like Bird or shuffle like Ali. There's another Ali reference. The other Ali reference is in Houston. That shows you that Ali's connecting these two paintings with African. Visible, beautiful, unsuppressible and free. History, African roots. Man, lion, pride, savannah, jungle, mountainside. So right there in this story, you go, okay, African roots, lion in the painting. There's the African painting with the African girl. You use a clue like that from the book to determine which one is the African painting. Then you go down here: blood pulse, drum beat, electric bird, music, ghost, West Coast ghost, grandfather spirit, tall as a tree, base of a tall tree. Follow the slave ship over the sea. This is an African story that's ubiquitous. Ubiquitous means it's everywhere. It's going to be in every single puzzle, The Secret. So once
Yeah.
you get a knowledge of the book, you could simply, like you say, alive in seed. That could connect to the garden goal, which is about planting. Alive in the flower, mystery family, history power, rainbow wearer, care walker, blues shouter. So there you go. Blues jive talker, soul brother, fire preacher, dream teller. It's all about people yelling, screaming. Hey, Yankee Doodle, up on your pony, that feather in your hat, and call it macaroni. You know, everybody knows that song.
Yep.
Wing of a Jungle Bird. And then right here, this is the Do-Si-Do statue. 2 white puppets trying to dance in too tight. Bright neon pants, cool. Club foot step. So square. When it was square, which is a 50s reference to someone that's just a goody-goody.
Yep.
When it was hip to be hep. Finger snapping, jazz collectors, pale-eyed class deflectors looking to score on a credit plan, some soul more than the soulful boogeyman. So there's a bunch of references in there. Plus, over here in the photo, San Francisco is going to be one of them. This is another photo like New York, the small businessman that's basically showing you the location. 93, Ben Ason's already said he took that photo in San Francisco. The boogeyman still getting down when you're just getting up. That's because you're at the club all night. But you look right in there, there's so many keywords. Uptown. Like Uptown Funk that recently came out.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funk, jazz, whatever genre, all that stuff comes from the same area. Then you have the word funk, dance and moonlight, Lindy Hop, shimmy. All these dances are being named right here. Rock and roll, bop, or the bebop, jitterbug. These are all dances. Lindy Hop, the swing. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And for Houston, it's the Rusk Ali Street, which is where he had to appear in court in Houston, Texas. But Rusk Ali is also, I don't know, it would probably be, I think it's probably easier to take this clue from Charleston back over to Houston than the other way around.
Yeah.
But Muhammad Ali had to go to court on Rusk Street, R-U-S-K. So in the book, he put Rusk Ali. These are major important clues, and these are exactly why you need these book stories. I'm just now starting to get into the ubiquitous stories, and there's still stories in this book I have not even gone through yet. But I just scan real quick and go, okay, this is going to be for New York. But always looking for something new. I'm not going to try to fool people into thinking that I went completely through this book. I have not.
Yeah.
The UDC
fully
was and made it a romantic story. Charleston, 4 o'clock, April's. The fruits and flowers and animals will see lanes open. Oh, April for a big clue to Charleston is the Battle of Fort Sumter, April 8th. That's when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Go into that story and find all the people involved in it, and that will tell you a lot for that. All right, man. What else you want to go through? We've been 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Hey, we
Anything else off your head? Anybody in the comments?
Yeah, what they got to say? I mean, we went through a lot. Went through a good amount. Montreal, Charleston, even touched on Houston.
In the comments, or can only I?
What's happening?
Can you see the comments?
No, I can't.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
All right. Give me a second. I gotta grab a drink.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I was there when Expedition Unknown searched through Charleston. So, I mean, if you guys want to hit me up and ask if they checked where you're thinking, I could tell you because I was over their shoulder, and there's there's a rumor that they only checked one spot, but that's ridiculous. They were there for maybe 7 hours, and it was more than one spot. It was closer to 20 spots they checked, and it was pretty much the top 20 spots at that time, which was around 2018, 2019. But they GPR'd 90% of that park, and dug up everything. Every time they had a hit, they tried to dig it up. Anybody thinks that one of the casts are on the paths, it's impossible. You'll never even puncture that with a shovel. Honestly, it's that park has cameras looking at it from all angles. I worked at the Fort Sumter House. The police approached us, asked us to watch the park as well as the building. So I've thrown plenty of people out of there myself. I'm no longer there, but there's somebody watching those cameras 24 hours a day. So be careful in Charleston or at Waypoint Gardens.
What you talking about?
I was just telling them about how I was there during Expedition Unknowns at Charleston, and I saw the 20 best spots in 2019 or 2018 when it happened. So if they wanted to check if their spot was already checked, I could tell you. I was over their shoulder. They were annoyed at me.
Oh, White Point. And I was there when I was there. David, he's in the comments. Me and David were there. And we were.
Yeah, David, I had talked to him also before.
Yeah, God, I want to give this Charleston thing away, man. I just don't. This is where my buddy just keeps going. Well, it's like earlier when I was talking about. So you see the wheel, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be one dimensional when you look at the wheel in Milwaukee. Look at it's a wheel. It's not just a mill wheel, but it looks like an old time caveman wheel that you've seen in cartoons, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I was just reading stuff when I was reading the Boogeyman, I was like, I don't want to be saying this crap, so go. Anybody watching this, I'm not going to give away what it means, but I do have to give away the pages. So when you go to page 20 and 21, what are the treasures the fair folk bring? Easily named, lovingly told. The fairies of England proudly bear the garnet, crown jewel of their queen. Okay, one of those in there, it's on page 21, is for Charleston. Mm-hmm. Now look at the key words, okay? Page 21, one's for Charleston. And then you go back to that part when I was reading about the dances, okay? Shimmy, swinging, Lindy Hop, the rock and roll bop, the bebop, jitterbug, okay? And then there's another story where there's one word that all three of these have in common. And I'm trying to think of what the heck the other... I can never remember the name of these stories. Oh, the Elvis S. Presley. Look at the Elvis S. Presley on page 98. The Boogeyman on 92, especially the dances. What you're looking for is one word. And on page 21. And on page 21, you're looking for the African Diamonds, Earthborn Star, Bright Harvest of the Midnight Rock.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're looking for. And then you see rock and roll. And then you go to page 98, which is right up from the Boogeyman. These stories are always close. And you see that word rock again. Rock, rock, and rock. That's a connection. And then you got to look at, there's people in this story. So Elf S. Presley is Elvis Presley. You got Peggy Lee, REO Speedwagon. It says the biggest pleasure is encouraging the popularity of dead rock stars over live ones. It also mentions Phantom of the Opera, Phil Spector. Who's the other guy? I can't remember. I know he's in here though. All these people got something in common. But when you look at this and you see rock and roll, that's not it. That's what the first, these are all singers and rock stars. But that's not it. Pay attention to the other clues. Use everything on page 21. Anything you can on the Boogie Woogie, which is page 92. And then the Elvis Presley on page 98. And that's, I don't even think I've ever even discussed this on a podcast. If you go to page 221 and 222, you notice how they're alphabetical. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you go to the other guide, which actually gives you the page numbers, which is right behind the field guide to the fair people, you notice everything here is completely out of order. But he's put them under genres. Very important. Yeah. So if we come here and we go, which I hate this page because I'll know I'm looking for the boogie. Okay, so the boogeyman in the back in 221, 222, it doesn't show the page number. You got to come to 56, 57. So boogeyman's under cultural. There's a clue. And then the Elvis S. Presley, he's also under cultural. So you got to think cultural, social, personal, political, regional, informational, environmental, household. These are all vague terms. If you say, hey, I know a guy's political, your first question go, what kind of politics is he in? I don't know, he's political. You know, what does he do? When you say regional, what region? Environmental, what kind of environment? Informational, what information are you getting from the Warner von Brownie? The Warner von Brownie, I could look at it just like this. Informational. The Warner von Brownie is about Warner von Braun, the father of rockets, and everything to do with him. The Jack-o'-lantern is also German, and it shows imagery of a microphone and a Christmas tree, Tannenbaum, which is German. And the Jack-o'-lantern also has a connection to FDR because of his fireside chat. Tinkerbells, it's not that kind of Tinkerbell. That has New York. Hounds of News, Nomenclature, that's about architecture. That's the one that Buckmeister Fuller's in. That references a whole bunch of cities of the secret. The Calculus, that's New York. That's Einstein. Postmaster General, that's Postmaster General, and that's about Benjamin Franklin, who was the first Postmaster General of the British colonies and the first Postmaster General of America after it was founded. Typographical terrors, that's a little New York, a little Roanoke Island, and a little bit of Roanoke Island was FDR's wife. The typographical terrors also including the glitches, which is about the first computer that was ever made, and it was made for the Manhattan Project so they could calculate where they needed to drop the atomic bomb to get it to hit where they wanted. The first computer was actually made for bomb calculations. That's just in the informational. Then you got economic, regional, political. All these have to the personal. So Damon Runyon in that story, which is about the history of casinos, but there's also Damon Runyon from New York, the playwright, writer, Guys and Gals. That was the name, Damon Runyon. Why personal? Because it's probably to a particular person. Alfalfa, Phantasmagoria, The Kitty Guardians, Poltergeist, Dingy and Rummy, Filthy Hobbits about smoking. Dingy and Rummy is about, that's Kentucky. That's about all the distilleries of Kentucky. The Leprechaun Man's about drinking and alcoholism. And you got a bunch of Minnesotas but every single bit of this needs to be cross-referenced back and forth. Spirit of St. Louis for regional. The Tuareg, which is Toronto. Nymphomane, which is Maine. Union Jack, that's a British thing. Nightmare, that's a Canadian thing. The Chicago's World's Ferry, that's of course Chicago. The Dixie
Yep.
Pixie, that's a little bit of Dixie Highway. That's Dixie Pixie actually says area of concentration in the north, but Dixie is obviously south. So you have to pay attention to both words. But you have, yeah, I mean, you see how he's trying to confuse you. Like when he says household, so the household of unfamiliars, scrupulous, which is washing machine imagery, the garden goyle, which is gardening, Saucer's Apprentice is cooking, Andy Manicore is about repair fixing it, Devil Dogs, they try to make you think that's about Devil's Food Cakes, and the Backyard Barbecue, which is about fires. I mean,
Yeah.
this is stuff once you get in there and you break down what that story's about. And Backyard Barbecue, barbecue, we got a history in Texas. You can get in trouble if you're barbecuing certain times of the year because it's so dangerous. Just like what's going on in New York right now.
Yeah.
Dry conditions. They don't want you outside with fire pits and barbecues I remember this guy years ago. I was still at home. We were coming back from a fireworks display up in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And this guy was barreling down the interstate, passing us with a grill in the back of his pickup truck. And all the damn embers were blowing out of the truck. I mean, exploding all over cars and catching the side of the road on fire. And my dad was a cop. My dad was like, boy, we're in Florida. I lost his ass right now. He said, I've never seen somebody so stupid in my life. I said, he's just trying to make sure there ain't going to be nothing left in that grill by the time he gets home. Alan says, Doug, did you check 19 feet from the cap stand towards King Street and then 13 feet to the right or left?
So the capstan in
I don't
King
think you
Street.
can check that right now. Yeah, they got that whole road blocked off of White Point, the outside road. They have the whole road pulled up.
Well, yeah, or all around that capstan. They checked all around that thing. On the path, Byron wasn't even going to get anything dug in that path at that point.
Hell no, that path is. Yeah, me and David Day were walking through there. That path is. They've used coquina on that path, and that stuff packs like. It packs good in the wall, and it packs damn great. It's base. Coquina is the base of that's road base. They use that in Florida. It's got a little bit of rocks in it. Once you tamp it down, that stuff's as hard as concrete. You'd need a pickaxe to go through that stuff.
Yeah, you're not getting anything on that path. I mean, that was the first place that Gates checked, and you could hear the ting of the shovel from all over the park. It was so loud.
Yeah. Byron, there ain't, the actual ground there ain't nothing much changed, if anything.
Yeah.
Byron would have needed
a pickaxe. Later, specifically pinpoint your spot. Whoever asked that, I'm willing to do that too.
Yeah, it would have taken Byron hours to dig that, and somebody would have noticed. I mean, he wasn't out there. I mean, even if you get a certain park, think about it. If you're like, man, I think this is out in the open. Could even wearing a construction vest, the construction vest would make Byron less noticeable. But getting in and out of his parks, he's looking at speed. He ain't looking at standing there for 5 or 10 minutes trying to bury something. It's like when Pound Card told the story in the Greek Gardens. He said, I walked up to look around, and then Byron showed up, and he goes, hey, man, it's clear. And Byron goes, it's already gone. And we know where he buried it. But he wasn't gone a minute, and it was done. That's what he's doing. And everyone, even when he's in these places and he's selecting a spot, he's not. He's not. I think he did all that crap in Montreal just to make that one harder, because I think he figured a lot of people would. Canada might be going over there, and it'd take them a while to figure out all those. Because your paces are all your pace when it says 12 paces west. Your paces all depends on how tall you are. So I'm a lot bigger than Byron Price, but me and him are pretty much the same height. So we probably got the same stride. So if you're 5'6" and you're going out there, I think you'd have to do research and go, how tall is Byron the one that walked out the paces? I'm probably sure he probably did. So you're going to have somebody 6'1", 6'2", to get closer to the spot. Otherwise, it's if you do the minimum stride of a person, a shorter person versus a taller person, it's somewhere between 23 and 36 feet away. That's a lot of probing.
Yeah.
That's 10 plus feet of you probing the line every 4 inches, and you're not going to be able to stand there and do that. So he was trying to get in and out fast. So if you go to a place and you go, I think this is it, like the Do-Si-Do statue, for example, that ground is hard as concrete. It is hard, like probe bending hard. And I mean, even if you got a big probe, there's no way Byron was staying out there with a shovel for 15 minutes trying to dig a 2-foot hole. There's absolutely no way. I mean, there's too many tourists coming in there. So whatever park he did select, he's gonna, based on that time or whatever, like in Cleveland, of course, he put it in the planter. He chose 3 o'clock. Yeah, he already knew where he's gonna put it. I'm gonna put it in the end of that planter right there. But from this side, and I'm gonna make it 3. And that's why it's gonna be over there.
Yeah.
Baseball field in Boston, he was probably out there mega late because I'm pretty sure he still had a time putting that thing in. I never saw how much room was actually behind the fence. I mean, he could have went, depending on how far they went back there. I mean, he might have went up to the fence or anywhere along that line. But I think that's what all this is. It's this direction and time. It's just like a clock hand. It's that line from the center to whatever number it's pointing at, and I think that's the biggest thing he's got. I have not located an X on anything, and it's all the like Montreal again with here's the white stone. Now I have to measure out 12 paces. And a lot of people will stand there and go, what the hell? How far is a pace? I don't know. Let's look into this. Oh, now your pace strides are different based on your height.
Yeah.
So this is just more hurdles. Like,
even your shoe size.
West, it's out there somewhere. So this is the only way we're gonna narrow it down is actually walk a pace. And did Byron say it was Byron and JJP? Did Byron put a compass on that rock and say, move over that way. Move that way, John. Okay, stay in there. Don't move. That's west. Now let me walk out 12 paces. And then he said, dig right here. If Byron didn't shoot exactly west, and he just said, well, that way's the west. Just imagine all those lines.
Yeah.
Dude, you'd be out there for months trying to figure out where it's at.
Yeah, that's true.
And we got to hope that he actually took a compass with him and said, I'm going to find out exactly. Or, in the military, you'd look through a compass and shoot an azimuth and go, that tree is west. Somewhere between here and there, let me walk out 12 paces. But there's like 4 to 6 different pace scales for feet, depending on how tall you are. And if your stride is 3.5 feet, 4 feet, 4.5 feet, 5 feet, there's a whole nother task for you. And then you go, okay, so we should be right here. Now start probing. And then if you don't hit it, you're like, shit, are we too short? Do we need to go? Is it another 4 inches this way? That's what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And some of these parks, it's like 5 o'clock. No, over there. If you don't have a visual, how much crap's back there? Ton of crap. Look at Golden Gate Park. I see all these people always going, well, I think it's at the Japanese garden or whatever. It's like, yeah, well, that's, it's Chinese, but it's like all the gardens up in Cleveland. There's literally a garden today for every country. You go to Golden Gate Park, there's different park. There's even a Robin Williams Park now. They've changed street names. There's a Japanese garden. There's a whole bunch of different gardens. You need to look in there and go through all them gardens and say, okay, what could be clue? What could be relevant? to put it in this garden, or that garden. Just don't take the face value going, okay, Asian, this is Asian, Chinese, Asian woman, so I'm going to go in the Japanese garden. You're wasting your time doing that. Get into the book. See what connects to San Francisco. And you got to chase down each damn lead to see if that actually dead ends or if it actually goes somewhere. But you'll figure out if it's goes somewhere by referencing every single thing else. I mean, for people like me that I can remember most of this stuff in my head, if you can't do that, then you're going to have to write it down and make some kind of graph chart, like what Mark S. was talking about.
Yeah, true.
And what I do is I just write a bunch of crap around. I use different color markers so I can keep all the British together and all the African together. Then if I go on certain pages, like Energini, I was using the green in this book for the Houston puzzle. So I'm attaching all these. Actually, no, I'm just using green for keywords on each story. But I got another book I'm going to get, and that's what I plan on doing, is doing one color for each different area, and then highlighting everything in every story. Alan says, if at White Point Garden.
Yeah.
But they're just so much. I just suggest people to read through the book. Utilize the stories. Stop believing this stuff that you don't need them. You do. You've got to. If you don't have anything to attribute any of the clues to, with the vagueness of these clues, they can attach to anything, anywhere. So you got to have stuff that makes everything specific and narrows down the search. And a lot of people just aren't going to want to do that. It's very time consuming. It could be very confusing at times. But that's what this book is. This book is the toughest historical treasure armchair hunt book ever created.
Yeah.
You see the new guy that just released the book that just came out, where he's got like 5 regions of America. What was that book called? Oh, he's actually got like a treasure chest. It's like full of gold and all that other crap. So I was, man, I go get that book and just get the Secret of Break for a while.
Yeah, I'll join you on that one.
Yeah, he was promoted all over Facebook.
You taking it here
in a hat? Where are we at? 2 hours, 40 minutes. Time flies. I don't really have anything else, dude, unless you got something. I'm tired.
No, I'm good. We did pretty good for 2 people.
Yeah, still didn't hear from Marcy.
No.
Marcy just said stuff, so she's busy. Yeah, I mean, anybody's a member of the page, we're me and Douglas are the main 2 hosts, and we don't want to just bring, the other people we've had on have been fantastic, but we don't want to have just the same clique of people on here every time we do a podcast. So It's not hard. You get you a phone, and he's on a phone. I'm on my computer. Get a headset. Don't be scared of it.
Yeah, you can kind of be in the shadows like I am. You don't even need to see it that much.
Yeah, he's actually surprising. He's actually got a light on.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't. You can put a screen behind you. Just come on here and just act like you're talking to people on the phone. I mean, it ain't hard. I used to do it. Tried to talk in front of 500 people, so it's always nervous. But you are able to bring what you got on this podcast, even if that is an alternate theory. You can talk about anything you want. We'll give you the floor. I'm always interested in hearing what other people got to say, and so was Douglas.
That's right.
And we ain't like other groups out there where, you ain't got to worry about, no one's going to make fun and ridicule you. You could say, do you think it's on Mars? We're just going to go, all right. We're not going to say, no, you're wrong. Get the hell off here.
No,
And
that's
any of that. So,
I stand for people picking on you. So
yeah.
that doesn't happen here.
But it's we're on Facebook. If we're getting a lot of people from YouTube, and I appreciate everybody coming over. I think it's been about 19 here recently, and actual real people, and not bots. And that's a goofy name person with no picture and no history. But on Facebook, we're on Secret of Treasure Hunt by Byron Price. All 12 puzzles are on one page. I'm the admin. Douglas is a moderator. And we have an open door policy for everybody. You can post anything you want, any theory you want. And unlike the other pages, nobody's going to sit there and rag on you and tell you you're stupid and wrong. That's why this page was created. Not by me, by another guy, because he hated the way everybody was being treated. And he didn't feel like Byron would be a fan of that, which is absolutely correct, based on what I've talked to his friends about that. So there's this stigma in the secret world that basically, if you talk about something outside the norm everybody else is on, you just get lambasted and attacked. And that does not happen on my page, period.
That's right.
And all our moderators know that. We're a community and everybody's supposed to be working together. And that's the way it is. So instead of having to join a million different pages, there's a few pages we suggest that are on the page. But you can come on there and work any puzzle you want. We even have a chat for any puzzle. We also do this podcast. As for this podcast, I don't know how much longer this is going to be on YouTube with StreamYard, because I got a notification that apparently, I guess Facebook had it with StreamYard, and now YouTube has as well. And just like Facebook, StreamYard's trying to act like it ain't no big deal and they're working on it, but they lied to me and told me the same thing on Facebook right before suddenly it wasn't allowed anymore. So the channel is going to stay on YouTube. They're just going to apparently cut their ties with StreamYard. So I didn't get a notification this time, but it said you got so many days to do your podcast through StreamYard on YouTube before they're not going to allow it anymore. So yeah, the Facebook page, Facebook ain't going nowhere, and neither is YouTube. I'll just use a different. I have to use Zoom. I mean, someone told me that the other day. I said, "Really?" They go, "Yeah, just use Zoom. You don't have to deal with all these." I said, "I never even thought about that." I know Karen John uses that for her Secret Deciphered podcast. I was like, damn. But she records it and then edits, and I don't like doing that. I really don't. As you notice here, there is no format either. We just talk about anything secret related and try to stick to the puzzle of the month first. But, like we talked about today, there's so many cross connections and so many puzzles. And, the fairies are everywhere. You got anything you want to add, Douglas? Promote your stuff?
Hey, just come to the DCCR page on Facebook if you want to know what I want, more stuff that I think. But no, have a good night. Thank you, Eric.
All right, man. Yeah, and I told him on Facebook, man, I'm tired. I told him on podcast on Facebook, the one that says all 12 puzzles. If you come through there, you can come over there too if you're on Facebook. But as for that, that's about it. You take it easy. I'm Eric Thomas, admin. That's Douglas. Y'all have a good night. Talk to you soon.
Peace.